Hi, it's Chima here. So have you ever tried, something new? It's a new sport, a new business, a new skill, and you looked at it and said, "No, that's easy. I'm gonna do it." And so you start to do it. But once you start to do it, you don't realize, oh, there, damn, I don't even understand fully this thing, and then you may feel a bit frustrated, right? Now, what you're going through at that point is not failure. It's actually a process. It's what needs to happen, right? When you start something new. Um, and what I'll do today is to show you that every single person, before they become truly competent, go, everybody goes through that, that phase where it looks like they don't know what they're doing, and that's what I call the four stages of competency, right? And I'm going to explain that, but as I to do that, I'm going to look into my computer and share my screen, right? So, bear with me as I go over to my screen now and get my headset, as it were. Okay, right. So, right here, let's say you have this new thing you're trying to start, a new business, a new skill, a new, say, trading or something new that you want to do. You start off, right? Most people will wish, right, that the route to the success, the ultimate, is that you just go up, right? But in reality, it doesn't move that way, and also it doesn't actually maybe only move this way, right? Now, what tends to happen is you've got to see this in two ways, right? Once you start that thing that you're trying to do, that venture, that experience, right? There are two levels to it. One level is the knowledge, right? Either the base knowledge you have and the knowledge you start to gain from doing the thing, right? And the knowledge you will get deliberately or not deliberately, just getting involved in that whole process. So it's the knowledge, and then the other part is the result, right? So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to represent the results by a black line. Then I'm going to represent the knowledge by a green line, right? So once you start, normally you have little knowledge, so you just start and you think this is so easy. But then what tends to happen is maybe you have some beginner's luck, right? Which normally happens, beginner's magic, right? And you get some results that kind of spook you, right? Wow, I really know this thing. But then the reality then sinks in and the results drop, right? Where you talk to five people before and four of them converted to customers, you now find yourself you're talking to 10, nobody's converting, 20, nobody's converting, 50, nobody's converting, right? And you start to either doubt yourself. But this is the point where you suddenly realize, wait a minute, I need to know something about this, right? And then for most people, right, you start to gain knowledge, right? Then as your knowledge is growing, your results are not getting any better. Your results are constantly going down. Your knowledge is growing, result is not getting better, right? That is a process that continues on that journey until you get to a particular level, right, of both knowledge and experience, right, where at that point, right, so let's represent that by this line here. At that point, right, you're still failing. Everything you do still looks like I'm not getting any result per se, right? Let's draw this. Why is it not drawing? Right? Everything still seems like it's going down, right? But your knowledge is going up, right? Until you get to this critical point, right? This critical point, then what starts to happen then is suddenly your results start to get better. Can you see the rate of change is now explosive, right? And your learning is still continuing, but it's not growing at the rate. It's not growing slower than your results are happening. Now, what tends to happen to most folks is that when they come to this stage of this process for them, right, they tend to give up. They walk away, they say, this is not a business I should be in, it's not meant for me, it's a scam and stuff like that. But the reality is, if you continue to learn and continue to practice what you learn, right, you will continue to produce results. And it gets to a point where your knowledge or your results will outstrip your knowledge. And so your knowledge is no more what is controlling the results. Your results are now, heading up, right? Even though your knowledge is not growing at the same kind of, it will still be growing, but it doesn't need to grow at this level anymore because you have become more competent, as it were, right? So this is what tends to happen, right, in a journey where you learn something new. This area swallows a lot of people. This area here swallows a lot of people. They give up, they give in, they throw in the towel, and they just walk away, and they feel this is not for them, right? However, the what I call the 4 stages of competency, hopefully this can help you, give you some framework and some guidance on how to start to follow a life, as it were, right? So the first level level of competency is what I call the unconscious competency level, right? Or it's what is called the unconscious competency level. This is where you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's true. Most times you don't know what you don't know, and you don't even know you don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes people start something new and they're confident, they're pushing, right? I can do this, this is easy and stuff like that. But the reality is that confidence is based on ignorance, right? And that usually is when they have the rude awakening that, oh man, that there's more to this than I realize. So you go from that place of not knowing that you don't know, then you start to apply, and then you realize there's something I don't know. And that takes you to the next stage, which is conscious incompetence, right? So you don't know that you don't know, but you start something. Then when you started, the results start to show that you don't actually know. You come to that consciousness that I don't know. So you become conscious that you're incompetent in that thing. Now, this is where some people give up. I can't do it and stuff like that. But no, you don't do that. You now know you need to know something. So this is where you find a mentor. You go on a class. You register on a program. You learn, right? You hire experts. You get partners who know. This is where you start to do those things that allow your competency to start growing now, right? Because you become consciously incompetent, right? And so you start to improve. You start to grow your knowledge. You start to grow your skill. Then you move from that point to a place of conscious competency, right? At this stage of that process is where you're conscious, you now know, I didn't know this 3 months ago. I didn't know this 2 years ago. Now I know it. I can actually do it. I couldn't shoot the ball, right? Before 100 shots and maybe I can get 1 or 2. But right now, 100 shots and I'm getting like 85, 90, right? It means you become competent and you're conscious that you know that you become competent, right? As it were, right? And then that takes you to the next level of competency, which is now the unconscious competency level. This is the mastery level where you don't actually have to think about it, but you're just doing it. So for instance, when you started to drive a car, if you drive, right, the first time you came into the car and the instructor starts to tell you things, there are a lot of things that you start to become aware of in the vehicle that you did not even know were there in the vehicle. So you've got that's unconscious incompetency. Then when the trainer shows you a couple of things, you become consciously incompetent. Then you know you have either 3 pedals, you've got a steering, you've got the transmission, the gear system, you've got all these buttons on the car, you've got all these things on the screen, you've got your side mirrors, you've got your rear mirror, you've got to think about the person on the road, you've got to think about other hazards that are also around on the road, right? Those are things that if you never knew about them, you would never even consider, right? But this time, you've become conscious that you don't know more about these things. You start to learn how to use them. You know where to engage the gear. If you're using a manual transmission, you know what gear to engage. Even if you're not using a manual transmission and it's automatic, you still have to engage the gear for forward movement or backward movement. So those sort of things. You start to think, oh, do I use that road? Do I use that? You start to think of all those things. That's conscious competency, right? You're now driving. But you get to a point where you can leave your house, drive from your house to your workplace, and you never thought about any of these things. You've driven for 35 minutes, 45 minutes, and you get to work, and you never thought about the route, you never thought about the gear system, you never thought about the side mirrors, but you used all of them, right? So it's now unconscious, subconscious. Your subconscious has taken over. You're now competent in that process. That's what it is to be a master, or to get to mastery. So that thing that you are trying to pursue, that business, that new skill, that new experience, stick to it. Don't give up, don't give in, right? Just stay on it, keep learning, keep upskilling, keep knowing different things. But it all starts from the first level of knowledge. Then you build knowledge on it, until you become a master in that thing you're doing. So I hope this kind of drops some knowledge for you here. If you have any comment, if there's something you want to share, please just go to the comment area and let me know what you think. And if you think this will be useful for someone else, please do share it. Let's all enjoy in this knowledge. Okay. Until next time, you take care. Keep building that business. Keep building that enterprise. Until we change one business, one society, one at a time. Take care.